The four.
Organization.
Wrapping up the victory.
Keep it steady cause you win and you lose some. I've been running since the day I was born. I'm still working on my style and that new song that I started.
How's it going, losers? I'm Brandon, and welcome back to Pokemon Cast, where we talk about life, the news, and everything between. So, didn't expect me to take a little week off, and I didn't actually expect it either. So, and I'm actually specifying it with the people that I'm welcoming back. I am sorry, I didn't mean to. I was trying to record something for my YouTube channel, and the gaming software that I use, the Elgato system, it decided to mess up my computer, and then my dad and I tore my computer apart, hooked everything back in, and then the monitor didn't work. So it was, long story short, it was in the computer shop for like over a week until they finally realized, yeah, it's the motherboard problem. But that's gonna take like almost a month to fix. So I'm like, no, I'm just gonna have a family member put in the motherboard. So in that week that I was off, a lot of stuff happened. I didn't expect a lot of stuff happen. I even had my phone mess up, and I finally got a new phone as well. So I was like kind of untouched from society for almost a week. I did a lot of reading. A lot of the reading that I'm not actually going to talk about in this episode. So let's get right into why do we have schools in America and how they actually came here. First, I should probably give a little history lesson of how we got here, just in general. And a lot of people know that Columbus sailed in 1492 to prove Spain wrong, to have like there's other countries and other civilizations out there. So him and a guy named Juan Ponce de Leon sailed the seas in 1492. Columbus touched down in the Bahamas, or what would be the Bahamas in Central America, and Juan was actually a governor in one of the islands for a while. And around 1513, on Easter Sunday, he touched down in what will be St. Augustine, Florida. And how we know that it was Easter Sunday? Well, that's kind of what historians tell us. And at the time, he decided to call the new land that he founded Florida, meaning Land of Flowers. So, if you are living in America and you hear someone complaining about them not living in Florida, you can now tell them you are living in Florida, because the actual one of the founding members of America actually claimed the whole country to be called Florida. So there you go. Anyways, so around 100 years later, around the 1600s, people was getting oppressed by what they believe in, over in England specifically. And so some people was just like, yo, let's jump on this ship and sail to where Ponce de Leon and Columbus was talking about, over in the seas and sea, and all these Viking dudes, I guess this dude named Ragnar the Red was talking about. So let's follow their path and go over to this other supposed land. And so they got on a ship called Mayflower. They sailed for almost a month, probably, most likely, if the winds and everything was fine. They got here in a month, and they hit a rock, which is now called Plymouth Rock. So after a little bit of way, whenever they got everything all settled down, so around the 1600s, specifically around 1635, is when the first school was actually built. And I did this episode quite a few times, I'm not gonna lie, and I was reading from Wikipedia, and like they was like giving this like whole big like list of like, oh, this is like the whole entire context of the story. And then like I went on like the other website that I'm actually like gonna read from now, and like they just like put in bullet points. So if you want to read from Wikipedia, you can. I will be also touching stuff from Wikipedia as well, and from the different sites as well. So that's start where the actual first school was actually opened. So they say the first schools in the 13 colonies opened up in the 17th century. And the first school, which you can actually still go to, is called the Boston Latin School. And it was the very first public school that was opened up in the U.S. Also, it was the oldest one as well. So, which that's what I literally just said, but I just want to like double check with Wikipedia, like, yeah, that's what they also said. So, the first public school was actually opened up in 1635, and to this day it remains to be a high school. So if you're in the Boston area and you actually did go to the Boston Latin School, congrats on you for actually going to the very first high school and public school in America. So, you are probably also thinking, Brandon, did they teach like what we typically know now? No, they didn't. Early public schools in the United States did not focus on academics like math or reading, because that was left for the parents, and that was if your parents even knew. Yeah, like even if they possibly knew that about math or reading. So instead of like the schools teaching it, they was just kind of like, no, let your family teach you, because that's the right way to do it. And which that was a very like cool thing for rich families, because they knew everything, and for like the upper middle class, like they kind of knew stuff, but for the rest of the people, like they kind of just had like guess, unfortunately. So instead, the schools taught the virtues of family, religion, and the community. You would think that math and reading and literacy, just in general, would be a part of family and also religion, but apparently not. Also, if you are excluding from certain families, like either rich families and stuff like that, girls were actually taught how to read, and but also not how to write, because a lot of the time, well, let me rephrase that. Girls in rich families did learn actually how to do both, but in certain households they was only learn how to teach how to read, because they wanted to actually have them learn the scriptures. Just kind of like the same with boys as well, but boys learned everything. Unfortunately, that was not an equally based society, besides of how it is today. So by the mid-19th century, academics became the sole responsibility for public schools, and that's kind of wild. It did not reach to that point for 200 years until 1800s, where it was actually like, yeah, we're gonna teach everyone everything now. And I wanted to add this like really like fascinating tidbit. I'm like touching back to it probably later, but also in March of 1620, a guy named George Thorpe sailed from Bristol for Virginia. He became a deputy in charge of 10,000 acres of land to be set aside for university and Indian school. The plans for the school of Native Americans ended when George Thorpe was killed in the Indian Massacre of 1622. But we're going to be also touching with that whenever we talk about more about the South part of the area, which that's what we're about to talk about now. So in the South, public schools were not common during the 1600s, actually, and also in the early 1700s. It did not actually hit the South until probably around 1770s, where tutors and teachers were actually advertising in newspapers and also in magazines, where there's like, hey, teach your kids something. Let me teach your kid all the things that they need to learn to actually have a normal life. And that didn't really get around the earliest schools around then in the South. Then also a lot of families actually sent their kids up north or over to England for schools, either private schools or universities just in general. So the South didn't really get schools until like the 1800s. Around like from what I remember, it's like the 1811. It was like one of the very first years that they kind of dated of like, yeah, this is when they kind of started having public schools down there. So public schooling in the South was not widespread until the Reconstruction era, so after the American Civil War. And moving on from that, common schools, quote unquote, was emerged in the 18th century. These schools educated students of all ages in one room with one teacher, meaning the proper schoolhouse, which we are actually going to be talking about the oldest schoolhouse, which was actually just some person's house. But again, we're going to be touching on that. So these schools educated all of the, like, basically kind of everything a little bit. But students did not attend these schools for free. Parents paid for tuition, provided housing for the school teacher, or contributed other communities in exchange for the children being allowed to attend school. And again, we're going to be also touching with that of how one of the oldest, the very first schoolhouse in America actually taught, and how they paid for the tuition for their children. So, by the early 1900s, and now to the present, by the 1900s, 31 states had compulsory schools attendance for students from ages 8 to 14. By 1918, every state required students to complete elementary school, which is still true today. Well, at least I hope so. The idea of a progressive education, educating the child to reach his full potential, or her full potential, and actively promoting and participating in a society, began in the late 1800s and became widespread by the 1930s. John Dewey was the founder of this movement. And now through the 1960s, the United States had a racially segregated system of schools. This was despite the 1954 Brown versus DuBois Supreme Court ruling, and by the 1970s, segregated schooling in the United States was eliminated. And actually, there is a very good book called Fire from New York that actually talks about one of the first girls that actually got into a integrated school in Little Rock, Missouri. Pretty sure that's where Little Rock is. It talks about how her family dealt with the pressures and the racially inclined city that they lived in during that time, and how people kind of treated her for going to a integrated school. And I read it while I think I was in high school or in middle school, and I highly recommend it. It's an extremely good book, and definitely opens your eyes up of how the country was back then. So, moving forward, in 2001, the United States entered its current era of education accountability reform with no intuition of the No Child Left Behind law. So, update the Every Student Succeeds Act has replaced No Child Left Behind, and they actually have a link where you can actually read it, but I'm not going to be reading it as of right now. So you can also, like, there's in the source below, you can read the AmericanBold.org with all the facts I literally just read, and you can also read more about the, you know what, let's see how long the Every Student Succeeds Act. Okay, there's a lot. I think that's gonna be a different episode by itself. And so let's see what time we have left. Okay, we got time. Cool. How about this? How about we jump to a ad break, and then we can go back and actually talk more about how, like, what also kind of schools there was. Actually, we can just talk about how, like, the oldest wooden schoolhouse, and then, like, I can give some advice. Yeah, so yeah, let's do that. Okay, so take it away, Admi. It's your best friend, your host, and your alternative universe teacher, Brandon here, or Mr. Walker, or Danny Universe. Just kidding, that's my radio name. Anyways, so, I know it's been a week since we last talked. Well, it's been more than a week now, technically. But I didn't do a lot of reading, and I didn't remember a couple things. Well, number one, I remember my name. Number two, I remember how to do this podcast. Actually, I continued doing this specific episode like quite a few times just to get it properly right, so I can make a really cool comeback, especially with this being the 30th episode. And also, number three, I also remembered the easiest way to actually make your own podcast and also publish your own podcast for all of the ears can listen to. And with that site being Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout is a podcast company out of Florida, and they helped millions of people, and actually thousands of people, start their own podcasts and actually promote them and actually push them to be wherever you listen to podcasts, like me. So they have like a base society thing of like, listen to me, a base society thing. I'm still on the school talk. They have a system where you can actually like pay X amount of hours per month. Let's say you only like want to have like 8 hours during that month. Well, they have a price number for you, and they also, like, if you, depending on what kind of episode you have, they also have different video tutorials on how you can make your own podcast better. You can also have articles that you can read. They also have different sources where you can get monetization easier now, and you can actually do a lot more stuff easier now. They actually have links to websites where you can get your own music, so you can put in your podcast and different stuff, and you can actually make videos and sound waves to post on your YouTube channel and this and that as well now. So Buzzsprout is and always will be the easiest site in my eyes, and to a lot of people's eyes, of how easy podcasting can be. So if you are interested, go check out Buzzsprout now. I'm going to be also leaving it down in the sources or somewhere in the link below. So go check out Buzzsprout if you're interested in making your own podcast. Again, I highly recommend it. So yeah. Also, number 4, I read a lot. This is not an ad. This is not even a sponsor of the books I read. The first book I read was the Sawbones book, The Horrifying Hilarious Road to Medical History. And the Sawbones is another podcast from Justin McElroy and Dr. Sidney McElroy, where they actually discuss different medical histories, from why do you have that weird mole on your back, to grave robbing, to COVID-19, to the Black Death, to whatever medical question you have. They probably will or haven't already answered it already. And I personally seen them live, and I loved listening to the podcast. And right before I seen them live, I actually bought that book, and I got the audiobook, and I actually just now finished it. Like during the week that I was off, I listened to the whole entire book, and it was phenomenal. I highly recommend it. And also the other book I listened to was Tales from the Haunted Mansion. It's not what you expect. Tales from the Haunted Mansion is a book where you go into the Haunted Mansion, and the librarian tells you the different stories about the different ghosts that live there and how they got there, and specifically sometimes even how they died. So yeah, technically how they got there. And I, like, whenever I first heard about it, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be like a Goosebumps type of book, because this book is aimed for kids and young adults. Whenever it got done with the first part of the book, I was totally like jaw dropped of like, did that seriously just go there? This is not a kid's book. Like, this is a perfect blend between Goosebumps and Stephen King. So if you're a Disney fan like me, or if you're a fan of the Haunted Mansion just in general, I highly recommend checking out Tales from the Haunted Mansion. And it's extremely like creepy, and it will keep you up at night type of book. So I highly recommend it. And I also highly recommend the Sawbones book as well, because both, especially if you listen to the Sawbones and then you jump straight into the Tales from the Haunted Mansion like I did, it will definitely like really like make your hairs on your neck stand up of how like really cool it is. That is, if you like creepy things like I do. So that has been my real PSA. I mean, we're probably also talking a lot about like different book recommendations as well as different stuff like that in the ad dimension, probably until we can actually go to cons again. Just to like have you lovelies have something to do while you are staying at home constantly. Or I also recommend some like different shows and like different stuff as well, games that you can play that while we are under this quarantine, or if you can't really go out just in general. So in the meantime, let's jump back to me, the normal me doing the show. So alright, and stay tuned. We're gonna be talking about the oldest wooden schoolhouse in America, as well as some advice I have for you lovelies either going into high school or in high school, or about to go to college, or if you're in college, or if you just literally got out of college and you have no idea what to do with your life. So I got you back. Stay tuned. Sound like Cecil from Welcome to Night Vale. Well, welcome back, listeners. Anyways, well, I mean to say, welcome back, lovelies. I was like too focused on the whole Haunted Mansion bit. I was just like, I'm gonna like do something else that's creepy. So let's just get right into. No, I mean like that first town in the U.S. is kind of like the third most haunted town in the whole entire U.S. So, talking about St. Augustine, let's talk about the oldest wooden schoolhouse that's actually in St. Augustine. And I know we touched on schoolhouses before the break, so let's dive into actually what the oldest schoolhouse actually did and who attended it. So the Minor Canon Quarter History and Heritage, and I'm going to be reading also from the oldestwoodenschoolhouse.com, just in case if you're wondering. That, and also they have a picture of the 9 students. Back in 1931, they decided to buy the oldest wooden schoolhouse and actually set it up the way that they did, and actually open it up to the public for museum purposes. But again, I'm not touching on that here, literally in like probably 2 seconds. So the oldest wooden schoolhouse symbolizes the settlement of St. Augustine from town to city, based on the foundation of the strength and determination of the colonists to create a community shaped by their traditions, customs, culture, faith. The Mannequins, poor islanders from the Mediterranean. Hopefully I am enunciating their names right. It's spelled Minorcans. So if any of you lovelies can know how to enunciate it, that's how you spell it. If you just want to look up more about them. So they came to Florida in 1768 as indentured servants on a plantation in New Smyrna. After 9 grudging deadly years working as servants, those who survived found refuge 70 miles north in British St. Augustine. Yes, you did hear me right, British St. Augustine. Also, that's another topic that we're going to be talking about, because I can do a whole episode about St. Augustine just in general, of different people that lived there and who conquered it and who didn't conquer it and stuff like that. But that can be for another episode. So, they were allowed to settle on the north end of St. George Street, just inside the city gate. It remained as the Spanish took the city again, and they remained when Florida joined the United States in 1821. So they have a picture as well of the 9 students, and of course there was text that says, in November 1931, 9 students gathered together for the first time in more than half a century. And they started off as a homestead, the Genopoli homestead. Again, hopefully I am enunciating the name right. So, property records reflect ownership dating to 1740. Jesse Fish, a land broker representing the property interests of the fleeting Spanish officers and residents after the British took possession of Florida, sold the home to Juan Genopoli on October 1st, 1780. Guess I should have been doing this episode on October 1st just for that whole purpose of that one little bit of that's when the oldest schoolhouse was bought by the soon-to-be teacher. So a homestead was established and maintained by a Genopoli family for over a century. As a Greek carpenter from Maine, he built a new home at that location from 1800 to 1810, which still stands today. The main room on the ground floor was indeed the classroom, with the entrance directly on the street. An additional smaller room was added to the floor plan to serve as the family sitting room, with a back door for easy access to the kitchen, which is a detached building made of wood, siding, and coquilla chimney. For those that don't know about coquilla, again, hopefully I'm understanding it right, it is a combination between seashells, concrete, and sand, and like different stuff combined together. And a lot of the forts in St. Augustine, and also a lot of the Spanish type of buildings around the Florida area, and like a lot of the south buildings and different forts and stuff like that, were made of this material, and which is still standing till this day. They had really no reconstruction on them. A lot of it's still standing, and for a lot of the time, people actually still build houses with that material as well, which is actually very cool, because that stood out from like how many hurricanes to how many like really bad storms, and yet it's still standing, because like the seashells and the sand like soak it in and stuff like that. Actually, also a little fun fact, on the fort in St. Augustine, one of the forts, you can actually still see where bullet holes and stuff like that like try to punctuate the stone and the seashells, but they're still indented to this day. So that's just a little fun fact. It does have nothing to do with what we're talking about. I just wanted to add that in. So the garden area behind the home was used to grow vegetables, fruits, herbs, spices, and so forth. Water for cooking and drinking, and the water was pulled from the old well adjacent to the house. So let's talk more about when it became a schoolhouse, and actually they actually have pictures of the schoolhouse and of how the classroom was set up as well. Then also, this is a place I've never been to in St. Augustine. I always walk right past it. Gwen and I actually walked past it like quite a few times, going whenever we was last in Florida. And now, in learning about it, I just want to go there even more and actually go to the schoolhouse and take pictures and actually learn more about the history. So, the schoolhouse, Juan Genopoli, now living as a free citizen in the British settlement, recognized the most importance of learning English. He invited the children of the Minican quality into his home to teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic. Just about all the stuff that you couldn't really learn until, well, now. So I guess he was one of the first people to actually teach kids everything that the parents should have, quote unquote, should have. Which that's actually really cool. Certifying notes and letters from students attending during the 1850s to 1860s, so it ran for like 10 years, almost. Or maybe even more than 10 years, and that's just what they have on their website. Express their memories while attending. Boys and girls attended this little school where it cost 12.5 cents per week for young students, and then 25 cents per week for older students, as they were supplied with parchment, quill pens, and ink to practice writing. Imagine knitting while sitting on a log bench, old chair, sometimes even the floor. The students also spoke of discipline and the consequences of misbehaving. The last class was in 1864, so like 1 year right before the Civil War. In November 1931, again, like what we just literally just read before I dived into how the schoolhouse actually was bought and stuff like that. In November 1931, 9 students gathered together for the first time in more than half a century. During the reunion, the former students arranged the classroom as they remembered, so the Genopoli House could open to the public as the oldest schoolhouse in America. And actually they have the picture, they have like one of the pictures of how it looked when it first opened of the schoolhouse, of how like they set it up and stuff like that. So I highly recommend going into this website just to learn more, and also just go into St. Augustine when it's safe to, and actually visiting the schoolhouse for yourself. So right now I'm going to tell you lovelies some cool advice I have. But to put it in short, my main thing I want to express is don't take life seriously, enjoy yourself, but also learn what you can, love what you can, or who you want, and also just be yourself. So for the lovelies that are entering high school or in high school right now, I'm going to do it from high school to college to leaving college, just to make it stuff way easier. And so you can tune in, tune out. All the older lovelies can be like, man, I wish I knew that. Yeah, man, I wish I could have told myself that back whenever I was going to high school. To begin with, like, be yourself. No matter who you're trying to impress or who you want to be, just generally be yourself. And even though if you don't know who you want to be, walk around it. Like, I always wanted to be a YouTuber. I've always wanted to be like the person that performs and actually makes people like learn different stuff and teach different stuff, and also to kind of inspire people to do what they want to do. So kind of like what I'm doing now, but I didn't expect to be podcasting. That took a life of its own in college, which again, you can go back to the podcast episode that we have and listen to that, because I think I'm pretty sure I dove more in depth with the whole podcast thing in that episode. So be who you want to be, like the song, like the intro song and outro song says, be who you want to be. And you may have to run for a while until you actually figure that out. I did not actually become who I wanted to be until I got into college, and even then, like, I still had a lot of work to do, and I am finally, I feel like, getting close to that point where I actually can be who I actually want to be in life. So for the lovelies that going to dances and stuff like that. Like, also, if you do ask anybody to dance, don't be scared for them to say no, because you never know what they're in their mind, who they want to go with, or anything in between. Then also, like, if you do not have anybody, enjoy going with friends. Or if you're not going with friends, just enjoy being there. Don't be like me and just sit on the bleachers and hoping that someone would pick you out of the bunch and ask you to dance. Because I wished that I would have took a lot of my friends' advices and just danced around and like actually hung out with people while I was at specifically homecoming. Prom is a different story, and a lot of people that actually did go to prom kind of will tell you the same exact thing. It's a whole different story, which that's what I'm literally about to go to. So, for prom, my first year, I asked this girl I had a crush on ever since 5th grade. I asked her, and she was like, no, like, I'm gonna go with friends, but, like, if, like, we can hang out there if you want. And so, like, it was kind of a yes and no situation. I mean, that's why I'm taking it. And, well, now she's one of my best friends, even though we don't really talk, and she lives on the other side of the country. So, maybe, hopefully, I can ask her, like, if she even remembers me, even cares. She can, like, tell me what if she did remember, like, what her thoughts actually were. And so, that's all we did was, like, she hung out with her friends. But then, like, immediately, as, like, we, like, met up there, like, we was kind of, like, inseparable of, yeah, no, let's, like, kind of not ditch our friends, but also ditch our friends at the exact same time. Just hang out with each other during the prom. And then, for my second year, all I did was kind of just hide in the corner and read manga the whole time, because I was kind of the chaperone of my friends. And I didn't really have a fun time going to prom my last year. But that's okay, because, like, at least I had that one experience. And that's kind of what I'm telling you, lovelies, is, like, even if you don't have that amazing experience, at least you had experience of going. Even though you may not have a date, if you did have a date and it kind of sucked, at least you had fun either hanging out with friends there or meeting someone new, or actually going with somebody to a dance. And also, for school projects and stuff like that, please do them. Please do all your homework and stuff like that. I cannot stress that enough. I kind of slacked on that a bunch. I didn't really do my homework, but yet, somehow amazingly I passed. Also, I failed in Latin and Spanish. But yeah, I remember a lot of Spanish, but not really any Latin. I remember some Latin, like a couple words, but that's only if like someone like says it and be like, okay, that I understand that. But that's also the same with Spanish. Is like I know like a handful of Spanish words, but only if someone like says them to me and I can be like, yeah, I understand. So then also, if you're in high school and you want to be a part of like a club or anything else in between, I highly recommend, even though a lot of people that do actually listen to this podcast, I'm assuming are nerds and geeks and stuff like that. So, and if you don't consider yourself as a nerd or a geek and you still listen to the podcast, also try it out. It's actually really cool. Go be a part of an orchestra, or be a part of a band, or be a part of choir. I knew a lot of jock type people that was also a part of those things as well. Actually, one of my friends and one of my fellow cello players was actually a part of the football team. So he would like play the cello and he would do all the concerts, and then like he would have football practice and he would go to the games. So you can still have that in between. And also, I also highly recommend going to do drama and also if your high school does have a book club, I highly recommend joining it. The funny thing with me is one of my friends actually kind of created it. So, with the librarian, which one of the librarians is my cousin. Ironically, it's actually my step cousin. And so, like, I was kind of forced into it because, like, another one of my friends was, like, joining the book club, and she's like, hey, why don't you come join me for this, like, session? And so I did, and I kept going back every single week and reading the books that they recommended reading and were talking about. And I remember specifically this one called Asylum, and I read the whole entire book before anybody else could, and I was actually done with the series before anybody else was done with the series. And so, like, I was kind of, like, strolling into the book club, just like, yeah, I already know what happens, so I'm not gonna say anything, so which, like, that was kind of, like, a really cool experience for me. And with drama and orchestra and book club, they do, even though it's filled with nerds, I definitely highly recommend it, because it definitely pushes you out of that element of, hey, this is some life skills that you're gonna probably be able to learn, because with drama specifically, like, it teaches you about improv and how to act under pressure. And that definitely helped me out with going to college. And it definitely helped me doing also this podcast as well. And it also helped me to do a lot of stuff in life just in general. Then with orchestra, it taught me how to perform on stage and perform in front of other people. It also taught me about different ways to play an instrument. It also taught me how to learn how to play a cello, and how kind of, like, everything has its little own place in life, and how you treat family and how you treat friends. You don't treat them, like, you treat them with respect, and you treat them like you're one of their own, either as a sibling or parental figure, however you want to view it. So it definitely taught me a lot of, like, really cool stuff. And so moving on from that to college, also one last little tidbit for the lovelies that go into high school. One of you in your senior year, don't act like, oh, I'm just gonna, like, not do anything. Do everything that you can, because you never know if this is gonna be the last year with your friends that you have. Because, to be honest with you, not a lot of your friends in high school are gonna stay with you when you go to college and when you move on with your life. I really only talked to 2 people, and I met those people in college, and one of them, like, both of them I consider as my best friends. And so shout out to Ron and Gil. Hopefully I'm enunciating your name right. But yeah, I only, like, really talked to them, and I consider them as my best friends. And even though I met them while I was attending college, I don't really talk to, like, anybody in high school, like, that much. Like, I only would talk to, like, 1 or 2 people, but that's only just because if I have to. And also, like, I do want to connect with more of my friends that I did have in high school, but with them being so busy in their own life, like what I said earlier, like, with my friend that lives across the country, like, I would talk to her constantly in high school, and she became, like, one of my best friends in high school, and I still also consider her as a best friend now, but we don't really talk that often, just because we're so busy with our own lives. But you know, if when the high school reunion comes around, you know that we're gonna probably be, like, talking the whole entire time. But let's get to that later on. So, for my college lovelies, if you're either going to college or about ready to start college, again, learn what you can, don't take your life so seriously. Even if you're living in a dorm, please stay safe, wear masks, like social distance and this and that. As well as like try to do what you can, learn what you can, because like for the most part, like it's actually gonna be like a weird ride. Think about if you went to a college like me, I went to like a trade school type of college where like it taught you like the fundamentals of like math, science, English. But then a lot of the time it taught you how you can do this job. And my college experience was kind of like that of the show Community, where like all these like weird type of characters like all got together in college and like kind of did hijinks throughout the years that have been going there. So that is kind of a cool example of that. And especially with the instructors I had, like they was nonstop, like one of the best people I've ever met in my life, and some of the most interesting people I met in my life. Not just the instructors, but also the people just in general as well. And a lot of them, and for both parts, I do consider them as friends. I still talk to them every so often, and I know that if I'm ever in a pinch, I can always get back to them and actually like talk with them. So let's talk about if you're going to college and you still don't really know what to do with your life, like with some of my friends and with some of the people I knew. If you don't know what you're going to do with your life still in college, if you're changing majors to major, try to think back to how your childhood was and try to think back to what you envisioned that you wanted to be while you was growing up. Like with me, I wanted to become an archaeologist. I know, it's so weird for probably you to hear that coming from me, a person that loves history and talks about history nonstop in their podcast. It's that kind of weird. That also plays Uncharted on their YouTube channel, and is almost done with Uncharted on their YouTube channel, by the way. Also, a little input. If you're not following my YouTube channel, it's Broken Hearted Gaming with a little and symbol Broken Hearted Studios. I'm playing through Uncharted at Thieves End, and it's gonna be the last Uncharted game that I'm gonna play for quite a while. So stay tuned for that, and also tune in for that as well. Yeah, but still, I want to become an archaeologist. Specifically, kind of like a teacher of archaeology. I wanted to teach people about history and like teach people how the proper ways to do certain stuff. And then I found out that I was like, a lot of my elementary school years and a lot of my middle school years was me sitting at home just playing video games. And then my high school years came around, and it was mostly just me playing video games at home, either by myself or with friends, and me talking with them, and either talking about the issues that they had, and then like with the whole thing that happened to me on my birthday, it kind of pushed me to do what I wanted to do now. And so that's kind of like what I'm saying now is, and kind of like what I'm trying to teach you, lovelies, is that think back to what you wanted to be whenever you was little. Even now, it's like the most outrageous thing. Like if you want to be a princess, or if you want to be a knight, or if you want to be a Jedi, or whatever. If you want to be a Sith, not judging. Think back to like the fundamentals of what they do, and kind of like what they do with society. And if you want to become a doctor, you can think about the fundamentals of what they do. Kind of think back to what you wanted to do when you was a child, break it down, and try to figure out yourself from there. And that's kind of also what I did, because I was also a big Indiana Jones fan, and he helped people through learning about history, teaching history. So I guess kind of how the 5 degrees of everything, that's kind of how I got here. So the lovelies, I just now graduated college, if you are just graduated high school and you still have no idea what to do with your life, again, think about what you wanted to be when you was growing up. Also, don't take life seriously and enjoy every single second of your life, no matter who you are having to deal with, because it will get better. And that kind of fundamentals down to everyone. Now I'm talking to everyone. So to younger levelers, to my older levelers, to the young levelers that are probably the same age as me, enjoy your life. Don't take it so seriously. Knowing what you can, be kind and respectful for everyone. Knowing what you can, don't believe everything that you read, and don't believe everything that you listen to, because I could, with some of the stuff I talk about in my podcast, I could be wrong. Like the different facts that I was talking about earlier in the episode, I could be wrong with some of that. But that's why I always leave sources down below, so you can double check with me and double check with the stuff I read, just so like it can be certain, so like you can get the whole story and get the whole picture of everything. So that also takes us to the final lesson that I would give some advice for you before I end this episode, is be respectful for yourself, also be respectful for other people. Love yourself and also love other people, and know what you can, and adapt from the learning and become a better person from it. Also, go read what you can, especially even if it's a weird medical history book like what I just listened to. Hands down, I never would have thought that I would listen to a medical history book, but I did, and I love it. And it actually taught me a lot of cool stuff, not just about medical history, but also just about how society was back then. And also, again, also taught me that thing of like, enjoy your life. Don't waste it on being so serious all the time. And no matter where you're listening to, leave a rating down below. If you're listening to us on YouTube, high five like button with your thumb. And no matter what you're going through, no matter what you're listening to, I mean, leave a comment down below. Leave some advice that you probably have for, no matter if you have advice for the high school lovelies, or if you have any advice for the college lovelies, or just out of high school, just out of college lovelies, and you want to leave it down in the comments below. Whatever you're listening to, please do. Also, go to your YouTube channel and also leave it down in the comments down there as well, just in case, to get that whole spread of the word around, so you can share some advice and actually probably learn something new. But it's from someone that's not me, which that's what I love about this community, and that's what I love about doing this podcast, because like I want to have people connect with each other and like not have me just like talking into a microphone like and listening, and you listen to it. Like at least go and actually spread some love and actually talk to each other and learn something new from each other and build that family of the brokenhearted family. And yeah, also don't forget to hit that subscribe, and also don't forget to ring the metaphorical bell no matter what you're listening to. Stay notified for an upload. And yeah, I hope you lovelies have an amazing school day if you're listening to this in study hall, or if you're listening to this on break. I hope you have an amazing school day and an amazing school week, and also I hope you have a legendary day, whatever you're listening to this to. And yeah, next time we're gonna have a cast. Bye.